And I remember at some point what ended up happening is that as I went back into the world and I was tiptoeing, right? I was on the horns of a dilemma, being in the world while being a Muslim, trying to practice, trying to reconcile these two, having my doubts about Islam, but kind of like at this point, just fed up, going like, whatever, brushed it off, like, stop asking, you're a Muslim, but not really devout anymore, right? Just doing, all this crazy stuff that the world does. I would actually come across some Christian evangelists in the street, and they would talk to me about Jesus. And I remember, I would get angry, man. I would get so angry that I wanted to beat them up. I was like the Paul, like of the Bible. I was, the Apostle Paul, the persecutor of the Christians, right? Sometimes they go like, "Hey, Jesus is the Son of God. Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, and you shall be saved." I would turn back from literally from being across the street and go back to these guys. I want to beat them up, right? And I would fight with them. I was that type of guy, right? I was so arrogant, man, so mean, so mean-hearted. And these guys were just so calm and so quiet and so peaceful. And I remember thinking to myself, man, these guys, like, they're unfazed, literally. Like, I mean, how do they do it? Right? I'm here angry at them, and these guys are just giving me love and peace and saying that they'll pray for me. And I remember, I'm not even exaggerating, like losing it, man, on them and saying stuff like, why would you pray for me, man? Why would you even say you love me? You don't even know me, right? But little that I knew the Lord was actually preparing something. And so fast forwarding, just to make a long story short, like many years later, at the age of 25, excuse me, rather, I meet this girl. She's a nominal, Catholic
Mm.
girl, and she comes from a Catholic background. Her parents completely, uninterested in Catholicism, right? Not like even going on Sunday to church, right? Not even, at Christmas, but they still call themselves Catholics, right? And me and her, we got into this relationship that was toxic, man. She was battling her demons. We were both like fighting against something, and we were trying hard to make it work, to make it work out. And I was in love with the girl, but turned out it was just, of course, puppy love, some emotions, some feelings, right? Not true love, like we know, from the Bible today. Not some true, steady love, some divine love, agape love. But anyways, you get the point here. And so at some point, she basically comes up to me and goes like, and I'm sparing you all the details because it was very toxic, man. And we fought all the time. She did a lot of wrong stuff to me, so did I as well, right? Not just to put the blame on her, but at some point she comes up to me like into I think we were like 1.5 years into our relationship, and she comes up to me, she goes like, "Listen, I met with this girl that preached the gospel to me, and so I want to become a Christian." And I go like, "Why would you want to do that, man? I mean, like I was under the impression that you and I were gonna spend our entire life together. We were gonna have kids in the future. Like, there's absolutely no way you would become a Christian, like a devout Christian. I don't want my kids to grow as Christians. I want them to be Muslims, right?" And she goes like, "Well, I heard that apparently I could actually make peace with my past." My friend there, she told me that if I came to her church and I got baptized, water baptized, right, that my past would be cleaned up, that my past would be blotted out, right, all my sins, all that stuff, because you know, she condemned herself a lot for some of the stuff that she did in the past, right? So, she was under the idea then that if she got baptized, water baptized, that would clean up everything, and she'd get a complete reset. So I remember telling her when she told me, I said, "You must be out of your mind, man." I said, "You're stupid or something." I said, like, how does this work? Like, you get baptized and then, like, this is stupid, right? But of course, I mean, you don't just, get baptized and you get your past cleared up, right? You gotta believe on the Lord Jesus Christ for all your heart, Romans 10:8-10, right? But she goes like, "Listen, my baptism is coming up in a few weeks from now, and I'd really like you to be there." And I said, "Absolutely not. There's absolutely no way in the world I'd be there. Like, even if you pay me to be at church, like, I'm not getting into church. Like, I don't want to, spoil my, I don't want to get dirty." Right. And she goes like, man, she was vexed. I remember she cried a little bit, and I was rough with her. Like, I have to admit it. So Anyways, she got her mother later to actually call because I would not agree to be there for her baptism. And her mother called in and she was like, "Hey, I just want to tell you that my daughter really insists on getting baptized. I think you should respect her as her, boyfriend and as her other half." So I'm like, okay. So I gave in. And so when we went to church, on our baptism day, I remember actually making it up the stairway as I'm going into the church on my way in. So I come across Christians that are welcoming me, like these couples and whatever, and they're just so lovey-dovey, man. And like I wasn't used to that stuff. Remember, man, I got so pissed and angry right off the bat, and she was like, "Please don't throw a tantrum. Don't, don't make me look bad. This is my baptism day. Just put up with it, and then we're done, right? In a couple of hours from now, you won't hear about it anymore." And I go like, okay, but I couldn't contain it, man. I just had so much hatred, like for these people. And then I met with an ex-Muslim. So ironically, he happens to be the pastor who later baptized me, right? He's also an ex-Muslim, ex-Salafist, who was paid by the Muslim Brotherhood back in Egypt whenever he was a Muslim with a long beard, very radical guy, right? To go and some people, right? This guy had a mission, as a gift, as a spiritual gift to go and annihilate people, right? And he had, murdered quite a few people. And so he came to the Lord Jesus Christ through visions and dreams as well, right? And then he had to actually flee. He had to fly out. He had to flee for his life because his head was, I don't know how you say that, like his head was at
On ransom, bounty.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so the guy really walked out on his old life. But anyways, long story short, he came up to me, shook my hand. I was like, "Man, I can't believe you're an ex-Muslim. Are you out of your mind?" I was so angry, man. I was so arrogant. Anyways, I sit there and so I hear the pastor, talking about like how Jesus is the Son of God. And at some point I'm like just boiling up, man. I'm like, I'm gonna stand up and say something here. And she goes like, "Please sit down. Right? Don't throw a tantrum. You promised me, right? You made vows, so please keep to your vows." And I said, okay. So I ended up sitting back and just enjoying the show. But then I left right after a baptism. Like I was like, I couldn't, stand, being in a church, and I just left and I ran away. And so when I ran away and I stopped picking up her calls, a couple of days later, I'm in the car, Kyle. I'm going somewhere. I'm actually driving, right? I'm cruising around. I'm going to see a friend, and I get on the highway, and believe it or not, man, I see this thing. I can't even explain it to you. It's like it was supernatural, right? But I know you believe that because it's the Bible. The Lord that we serve is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. He's not done with the signs and wonders and everything else. But back then, I had no clue what it was. But I like it's almost like my eyes shut for like half a minute, and I saw dark, right? And in the midst of that darkness, it's almost like time actually stopped as I'm driving, right? I mean, if you shut your eyes for a couple of seconds, right, you get into an accident because you're on the highway, you're speeding, right, you're driving full speed. But in this case, I was able to shut my eyes, and it's almost like God allowed the time to just stop. I wasn't worried about like what to do next because I was in the zone, against my own will, by the way. And it was dark, but then in the midst of that darkness, there's just a cross that appears there. Like I had a vision of a red cross. I've got goosebumps right now just telling you about it. And when the cross, came in my vision, like as soon as I reopened my eyes and realized I was still in reality, and I got a reality check, right? Something hit me right here on the tip of my head, right? As if like, it was electricity that just what's the word that I'm looking for? Electrocuted me.
Uh, Electrocuted you?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You said it better. Good. So it just took over. Like I felt this electric circuit, right, all over my body, just taking, over. And then I had to pull over because I couldn't contain myself. I was shaking. I was shaking. I couldn't understand what was going on, right? But when I pulled over, I began to cry. I don't know why I'm crying. I'm just sobbing, 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 sobbing. And I'm crying, I'm crying, I'm crying. But man, it was like the good type of crying. Like, I don't know why I'm crying. I don't know who I'm crying to, right? I just felt like a relief. I felt free for the first time, right? For so many years, it's almost like, again, like these mountains that were getting lifted off, right, in my dream when I was younger. Because now we fast forward to 10 years later, right? Almost. I'm feeling that again, the same feeling that I had in that vision where I saw Jesus, right? The first time. And now these things are just lifted off, all this weight, man. And for the first time, I was able to cry for the people I'd hurt. I was able to feel bad and compassion and love for all these people that I hurt and damaged, their lives, from the girls I knew, from the girls that I dated, from the people that I hated, like my mom, all the people, even that guy, right, that um like misbehaved against us, that treated us wrong, right, for 12 years. I mean, I was able for the first time to think of him and go like, you know what, I actually do like forgive him, right?
Mm.
Like, and I was feeling the love now. All of a sudden, like there's a love that came upon me, and I was feeling the love of this source of life. I don't know where it came from, but I felt like, I was loved by a father. But mind you, I knew nothing about Christianity, right? Like, it's not like I looked into it or I searched for it the same way I did with, the Jewish faith back then, right? This was completely different and completely new to me. And so, how it happened, who was it that was touching me? Who was it that I received, that stuff from? I didn't know. I just knew that, you know what? I was loved by a father, someone else than, my physical father, or these figures that, that disappointed, that discouraged me, that failed me in life. And so I went back home completely changed, completely transformed, or at least, like close to being completely transformed or washed. Like I felt like I experienced a heavy wash